Okay, Yami. So we set a goal 3 weeks ago of implementing routines and procedures for group lessons on the carpet. And I noticed how you and your students met this goal by you explicitly taught the routines and procedures a few weeks ago. And then you gave them lots of practice over the last couple of weeks. And then today I saw you reminding students when necessary of what you wanted to see. So what made that successful?
Students were engaged at the carpet. They understood what they had to look like and act while we're doing whole group lessons.
Great. So what's the impact of teaching and practicing routines and procedures for those
Students
lessons?
were engaged and learning.
Did you see a change in your lessons from like when you first started teaching the routines and procedures to?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. More engagement?
Yes, a lot of discussion and a lot of participating, like raising their hands, especially from my first graders who aren't as high as second graders would be.
That's great. That's what I've seen every time I've been in here too, like definitely more engagement. So today I want to dive into monitoring that engagement so that, you've got them engaged, you've got them pulled in, and then you're going to constantly monitor to make sure that they stay engaged. So what are the criteria for success to know when students are engaged or unengaged?
When students are engaged, they are actively asking questions, they're listening to the speaker or to their peers. When they're not engaged, they're either fidgeting and not paying attention, not participating, or actively listening.
So what's the purpose of monitoring for engagement?
Making sure that students are, learning, and maybe just giving them a few reminders if they're not, that way they can focus and correct their behavior or their attention towards whatever we're learning, or if the speaker is speaking.
Right. So maximizing learning, maximizing focus. Yes, exactly. So when you're doing these lessons on the carpet, what do you ideally want to see and hear the students doing?
I want students to be actively having a discussion over the material that we are learning, as well as participating whenever they can, and even asking questions if they don't know a little part of the lesson.
Yeah, okay, good. So kind of advocating for themselves when they're not understanding. And that helps you as a teacher to know where you need to adjust your instruction, go back and do reteaches and whatnot. Okay, good. So we're going to take a look at an exemplar video. This is from Get Better Faster. So we've looked at these videos before, and I think I told you before, it might not be exactly the same as your classroom, but just want you to pay attention to what the teacher is doing in this video to monitor for student engagement. Make this big.
Try your best. If you have to, skip it.
So when you're scanning, you need to scan your own spots.
Right.
So you'll see she went like this because Kimani was not moving his hands. He was not tracking. So when you see her go like this, that means look, give what to do. So I'm not going to stand on this side. If you have someone you need to scan, I'm going to put my hand over them. That means make eye contact. Tell them what to do and do not move until they do it. Okay?
The next question is the last one we'll go over. Which is the smallest? A city, a state, or a country? Muhammad, which is the smallest?
A city is the smallest.
He said a city is the smallest. What's the next biggest? A city is the small.
Okay. So, what did you notice
What's
about?
the next biggest? A
There we
city
go.
is the smallest. Then what? Fold your hands. I'm waiting on one in purple.
Okay, so what did you notice about the way that teacher monitored for student engagement?
So I've noticed when he says fold your hands, it's the whole class has to do it, and we're not moving on until, even if it's just one person.
Yeah, yes.
We're gonna wait until everybody's engaged or paying attention.
Yes. So what do you think the gap is, or the difference between that exemplar video and what happened in your class this morning?
I think even when I try to have my kids do that, at the same time, I still had some students that were, still fidgeting, not listening, not making eye contact to me. So they did not even know that I was like waiting on them.
Waiting for them. Yeah, that's what I saw too. Okay, so based on what we've discussed today, what do you think your action step should be?
I guess like continue working on those procedure, like routines in the carpet, as well as like maybe try to have like a conversation with that one student, because if it's like a constant thing that's going on, then it's something that we need to work on, and maybe like even have a conversation or create like some type of goal, like just between me and him. I'm like, hey, like on the carpet, like let's try to have a good engagement session, like when we're doing our lesson.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe they'll work for it, have something to look for.
Right. Yes. So I think what you said about like continuing to work on those routines and procedures, that's probably something that you're going to have to do for the rest of the year, right? Because you're going to be constantly reminding them, especially at this age, right? Like they just need those reminders. Even the ones who are normally engaged, like they're going to need occasional reminders. So what we're going to work on is actively monitoring for engagement and disengagement in students, and then addressing that in the moment, like you saw in the video. Addressing it in the moment, and then having them practice, and then not moving on until that's fixed. So that's what we're going to practice. So what are the key steps that you think you need to take to close that gap?
I mean, just like reiterating the procedures in the carpet, maybe having them practice like not just like in the lesson, but we can just have like a brain break and be like, hey, like we're just gonna pause on our work right now, take a break, and we're gonna practice some procedures in the carpet and just go over it, and then have them do like non-examples of how we're not supposed to do how we're not supposed to act in the carpet during a lesson, and then having them fix it. Right then and there.
That would be a great way to practice.
Just like constant practice and maybe having students model it to each other as well.
I love that. I love all those ideas. So your action step today is going to be to monitor for engagement and disengagement. And we're going to work on this kind of in three ways. And then I think we should add that, like modeling examples and non-examples, having the kids model that. We're going to work on constantly monitoring for engagement and disengagement. So throughout the lesson, always kind of having that teacher radar on, like being aware of what students are doing. And then when you notice that someone is off task, you're going to make eye contact. You're always going to be making eye contact with all students, right?
Yes.
And so you have already taught them that the expectation is that they're giving you eye contact during lessons. So you're going to be trying to maintain that eye contact with them. And then when you notice that someone is off task, trying to get their eye contact. Like you said, sometimes that's hard because they're already like not even looking at you, so they don't even notice that you're looking at them. But trying to catch their eye contact, and then just using that as like a nonverbal signal for them to get back on task. And then what you were saying about kind of like targeting certain students that you know are frequently off task, we're going to choose like 3 or 4 students who often get off task, and then you're going to be more aware of those students during lessons and look towards them consistently. So you've got kind of those students in mind, and then you're consistently trying to make eye contact with them, trying to catch their attention, just to kind of help you be aware, but also they won't start to notice that like, oh, like she's paying attention, she's looking for me to do the right thing and to follow those procedures and routines that you guys have practiced so hard. Okay, so where would be a good place to implement this in your upcoming lessons?
Like when, like date and time?
When during the day do you think you could practice this? Like same time that we've been practicing? Yeah. 7:45, like that morning science lesson? Okay, good. So what are all the actions that you need to take in order to follow through on this action step. So we had talked about like kind of
Just like
targeting a few
Yes.
students. Okay, so do
And
you
then-
have some in mind already?
Yes.
Yeah.
okay. Yes,
Okay,
do.
so you know how many?
Yeah, like I
like-
have 3 to 4.
3.
That's-
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you know exactly who those students are. And so you already have that kind of targeted monitoring in place. And so you're going to be working on constantly monitoring and then making eye contact or, you know, always kind of looking towards those students during your lesson. And then also, like you talked about, just reviewing the routines and procedures, which is going to be a continual thing. So let's take a few minutes for you to write up your plan. So I want you to write down your action step and then write out the steps that you're going to take.
And this is called monitoring.
Monitoring for engagement and disengagement.
So I have 3 students to focus on. Model and or provide practice and model, continue modeling procedures in the carpet for during lessons. And then keep eye contact
Yes. I
with
was just gonna
students
say that.
to let them know when they are engaged or disengaged. And then I guess I can also put like follow, like not moving on, letting them know we will not
Yes.
move on
Right.
until everyone's focus is on the lesson. Okay.
Yep, exactly. That looks great. So now that you've kind of thought through those initial steps, what will you do if you notice a student who's not engaged? Like, let's say you notice somebody's not engaged, they're not looking at you, so the eye contact is not working. What will you do?
I think going up to them, it is kind of like, I don't want to say it because I'm like, why are you trying to intimidate a little kid? But it is. You have
No.
to go and stand next to
Right.
them and kind of give them like a little bit longer stare. And you're like,
Right.
it's specifically you that I'm talking
Right.
to.
Exactly.
And see if that helps.
Yeah.
But if it does not continue, I guess that's my problem where I'm running
Okay.
into. I'm like, where else can I go from that?
So I think, first of all, I don't think that is a negative thing at all. It's not intimidation. It's just
Okay.
proximity. You know, so you're just like letting them know,
Okay.
I'm here. I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
I'm here to support you, but like I need you to do this
Okay.
for me. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that at
Okay.
all. But yeah, it does get difficult from that point. Like if they see you, they know that everybody's
Yeah.
waiting for them, then where do you go with that? So do you feel like in your class you have a culture of like positive like support from the rest of the class? Like, hey, we all want to move on with the lesson. We
Yes.
need you to like
Yes, I do.
follow
I
the
have.
procedure so that okay.
Yes, I have some of my students, even without me saying it, would say out loud, like, we're waiting on you.
Okay,
Like, they would say it. Like, I have
yeah. And you can, and that's something when you're doing like that practice, you can say like, guys, like I need your help to remind your friends what they're supposed to be doing. So here are some things that you can say. We want to learn. We believe in you, so and so. You know, so maybe give them some like some like phrases that they can say
Oh,
to
okay.
each
I do
other
like that.
to so that they can support each other's learning, and it doesn't all have to come from you.
Yes.
Okay, so great. So we added kind of some ideas for responses to disengaged students, and now we're going to practice. So I'm going to pretend like I'm a student who's like pretty compliant, but just maybe gets a little off task sometimes, and I want you to use your steps to bring me back.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so you're in a lesson, and this is one thing that I saw. Somebody who had a pen today and was playing on the carpet. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. And I like the smile too.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you're in trouble. I'm just reminding you and I'm on your side. So that's perfect. You're really good at that anyway. You're super good at positive. Just keeping everything positive. So okay, so now let's practice again. And this time I'm gonna be a student who's a little bit less compliant. Okay.
Class, make sure that we're not playing with anything on the carpet. Thank you so much. I love that you put that away.
Yeah, I love that you added the positive narration at the end. Yeah, to just like keep it positive, and like you're modeling that for your class too. That like it's not like we're mad at that person.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to turn this into a like a
Yeah, I'm
you know, mob
doing
mentality.
that a
like,
lot more, practicing, especially when we're
Yeah.
walking in line. I have some students who love to twirl
Oh.
in line, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah. Yep.
But then I see them fix it, and I started to do that. I'm like, maybe they like praises more.
Yes. That's generally most effective. Yes. Okay, great. So how did what we practiced today meet the action step that you're working towards?
I guess it kind of gave me more of a practice of how I want to approach my students. And I like the way that you said, like, I don't want it to be like a negative thing. I want it to be a positive thing because they are kids and they do, you know, get distracted whenever. And I think it's like a good thing to approach and correct the behavior in a positive way so my students can also see that, and maybe they can help their classmates
Right.
in a positive way, like approach them and say like, hey, like let's not do that because we got to focus on the lesson.
Yes, and you have great relationships with your students. I can see that. So, like, you don't want to you want to have high expectations, but you don't want to make the high expectations ruin your relationships with students. So, yeah, the keeping it positive and pointing out the positive, narrating the positive. That's a really good way to address the problems and still keep your expectations high while keeping those relationships intact. So where do you think, like thinking about what might happen in real life, where do you think our practice might have fallen short of the exemplar?
I think a lot of it probably goes like it's a continuing thing, even though he addressed it, he fixed it right now, but then a minute later it keeps going on and on and on.
So what's your plan if that happens?
I think at that point it's just more like I'm going to have a conversation
Yeah,
with that
private
student, and
conversation, yeah.
it's going to end up a parent message.
Yeah. And I've seen you do this too. Like, you're very discreet in your, like, when you do have to have those conversations with students. So that's really great. And